Earlier today, I was browsing the Reddit PPC subreddit. If you haven't been on there, it's pretty interesting. It's primarily for kind of industry professionals, both agency or freelance and in house, who want to talk about Google ads and other forms of pay per click advertising, also Facebook ads and things like that tend to come into there as well, and basically discuss performance and industry trends and so on. Well worth checking out. It's probably not the most user friendly place if you're getting into the industry, but the reason I'm bringing this up is this particular thread jumped out at me. And so someone here is saying, this is the title of the thread, if you're not familiar with how Reddit works, I'm going to sue Google, and they believe they've got a legitimate claim for compensation from Google. Well, actually, they contradict themselves literally in the next sentence, saying they don't think there's much of a chance of compensation, but they believe they have a claim, reason or grounds for compensation from Google, because basically, if you look at the details of the complaint, uh, the advertiser set up ads that didn't deliver properly. So the ads were running to a page that wasn't working, and Google had allowed the ads to run to a page that wasn't working. And basically, the crux of their argument is Google has a duty of care to their advertisers to inform them that there's an issue with the ads, they're not reaching the website that shows the final destination. And basically, Google said nothing, kept taking the money, and they believe that violates Australian consumer law. So obviously, this person's based in Australia. Um, Long story short, what happens if you have a dispute with Google? What happens if you're not happy with the performance or not happy with how the ads have been delivered and so on? Have you got a leg to stand on? Can you get your money back like this individual is hopeful to do? Basically, no. That's the short answer. You can see here the feedback, and this is feedback from people who are typically all industry professionals, is pretty overwhelming. This one here is rather unequivocal. This is your fault. They sent the traffic to you. Your website was broken. You don't deserve a dime, and they aren't going to give you any money. Hashtag sorry, not sorry. This person here says this. It wasn't a 404 because the page loaded. Google did exactly what you asked it to do. This person here says, ads don't 404. That's a very correct statement. Actually, your website does. So it probably couldn't handle the tracking parameters you had in place. So this advertiser set something up in their tracking parameters incorrectly. That's broken the site, but not broken the site or the landing page to such an extent that Google's picked up on it. So basically, a human user hasn't been able to access the page, but the Google bot or tool that checks your landing pages has worked. And that's where this problem's arisen from, because if you have a properly 404ing page, Google will pick up on that usually very quickly, especially when you're setting up the ad, and it won't actually allow the ad to run. It will disapprove the ad. And look, you can see here that this person's elaborated on it. It's basically a script error. They've set up some sort of tracking script wrong. Yeah, big problem there for this advertiser. Well, actually, not massively when you consider there's $24 worth of spend and people have blown through way bigger amounts of money than that. But I can see why they're frustrated. But yeah, you basically have no leg to stand on if you set something up wrong in Google Ads and there's an issue. Even to the point where, and I'll give you an example from a project that I've worked on in the past. I kind of came into it after the fact though. So I was doing some consulting work for a business, and they had an in-house marketing specialist who was running Google Ads, who was new to the platform. This marketing specialist wound up on a call with a Google Ads rep, the people who call you up basically trying to sell you more advertising. They had an ad account that was spending maybe, I think, about $4,000 or $5,000 a month, something like that. It was going pretty good. An agency had set it up for them in the past, and then they'd kind of migrated to having this internal person look after it, who was quite new to Google Ads. And they got on this call, and the Google Ads rep basically talked them through making a whole lot of changes that both increased the budget. They said, "Oh, you're missing out on ad clicks. Let's increase the budget." And then they de-restricted some of the bidding settings and so on that were in place, and some of the keyword targeting. And lo and behold, that marketing specialist whose time was split across multiple different things didn't really check what was happening over the course of the subsequent month, and wound up spending about another $4,000 or $5,000 again. It was, I can't remember quite off the top of my head, but spent double the budget on advertising that performed basically terribly. It was trash. It didn't generate any results. And they'd taken pretty meticulous notes of this call, and it was very clear from the notes, and I trusted this person because they were really embarrassed and upset by what had happened. And obviously their boss was kind of chewing them out a bit. They were really upset because they thought, hey, we'd done here what Google said was going to improve performance. And, we've had worse performance. We've spent a whole lot more money. We've blown through, 2 months worth of budget in 1 month and actually had way less performance than we were getting before. We've done what we were told. Surely we're entitled to some kind of refund or contribution here. And, Google's answer is basically to stick up the middle finger and tell you to get lost. There was nothing that could be done. I tried jumping in. I'd come in after the fact. As I said, I was kind of hired to look at what was going on. tried to have a chat with Google, see if we could get anywhere. No such luck. You were responsible for actually implementing the changes, was their position. You didn't have to do it. And so it really, there was no happy ending to the story, which I kind of knew from the outset, but I wanted to go through the motions with the client anyway to keep them happy. So that's an example of where a far greater amount of money than $24 was blown through on the basis of Google's actual advice, and they still don't give a crap. They're still going to take your money and run away with it. It's on you as the advertiser to set up your ads correctly, to check things like how your budget is tracking, to make sure that you've got systems and processes in place to prevent things like this occurring. You need to kind of defend yourself against what's going on. Where you might have some protection, and this is where sometimes having an agency or a freelancer run ads for you is actually a good idea, is if you go through a third party who's running it and then they're kind of negligent in their management of your account on your behalf. That's where you've got probably more protection. Realistically, if you were, say, hiring a reputable agency to manage your Google ads and you set a budget of $5,000 a month and they blew through $10,000 and killed the performance, they would probably come to the party with something, right? I mean, in an ideal world, they'd refund you the extra budget, or they might, waive their management fee for a few months or something like that. But if you're going directly to Google, that is one of the bigger risks. It's why you've got to understand a few basics of the platform. Just like if you have a car and you take it to the mechanic, if you understand just basic stuff about how cars work and what's reasonable for a mechanic to charge for certain types of jobs and so on, it's far less likely you're going to get ripped off. Because if a mechanic tells you some ridiculous thing like it's going to be you know 2,000 hours worth of work to change the oil filter on a 97 Toyota Camry, you're being ripped off. And so, you can go elsewhere and you can say, this just doesn't smell right. I'm going to go and get a second opinion. So long story short, can you sue Google, dispute with Google for getting ads wrong, for having performance that wasn't up to your standard, for making mistakes in the platform that you think Google should have alerted to you to? No, you can't. You can try, and actually in this comment thread, there is somebody who talks about something where they were actually able to get Google to refund a little bit of money. I think it might be in one of these collapsed comments here. This person talks about, having Google credit clients back $14,000 for unprofitable traffic that they couldn't explain, but it was a rare event. It was on an account that had a huge budget. So, when you're spending big money, it's like all things in life, right? If you are like a diamond, elite, quadruple platinum air points flyer member for a particular airline, and something goes wrong with your flight, you're much more likely to get some kind of refund or contribution or benefit from the airline than if you were just like buying the cheapest possible economy class ticket and they'll never see you again because you fly with whoever's cheapest. If you spend a lot of money with Google Ads, you get a different level of support and a bit more leeway when things do go wrong. But outside of that, or outside of Google actually having a bug with the platform, which even then I've seen things happen like where there's been bugs with the way that Google's run ads and they've delivered over budget and still tried charging it to the advertiser's credit card. It's only when you pick it up and then you have to go back through their pretty useless support and try and prove that there was a bug and so on, which is usually other people on places like this Reddit PPC forum will jump in there and talk about it. That's when you sometimes will encounter bugs, or on Twitter we'll often talk about these kind of things, and that's where you might have some luck. But outside of a bug, an actual problem on Google's end that results in some kind of issue with your ads running, which oftentimes they are pretty good at just automatically picking up on that anyway and canceling any spend or crediting it back, you don't have a leg to stand on, really. You are responsible for the ads you run. So it's really important to make sure that you know what's running, you know what your budget is, you're checking on how your ads perform, you have systems and processes in place to stop bad things from happening, like your campaigns running, going to a landing page where the sign up form is broken, for example. That's a common thing I've seen in the past. Advertisers paying for ads, going to pages where the user can visit the page because it loads, but they can't submit the request a demo, request a quote form, or check out cart form or whatever it is because that's broken. That's not on Google, that's on you. So yeah, hopefully you found that helpful. Just a sort of generalized discussion of this topic. Really, really important that you understand where the pitfalls are, that you're checking on your ads, that you're checking that there aren't things broken on your landing pages and so on. Because if this happens and you think, oh, well, Google should have had a duty of kind of care to tell me about that, like, it doesn't really matter what your local laws are to some extent. Maybe if you had a very deep pockets, you could litigate something like this, but realistically, you probably don't. And so you're not going to have a very good time trying to duke it out with one of the most powerful, well-resourced companies on earth. So yeah, hopefully you find that helpful. Do let me know in the comments what sort of problems you've had here. Have you ever managed to get money back off Google for poor performance? Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.